It's time for your Low Country Real Estate Market Update. It's the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Brian is one of the top 1% real estate agents in Charleston. Find him online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Or call him at 843-345-1273. Now, broadcasting from the WTMA studios, here's your host, Brian Beatty.
Good morning, Charleston, and welcome to another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I'm your host, Brian Beatty, and thanks so much for joining me this morning as we continue to talk through the impacts of COVID-19 on our local, regional, and national real estate market, what you need to know. This has been the source of information on real estate and housing in our area over the past 8 years. I've been on this program on WTMA, sharing my experiences with you as somebody that's sold over 1,000 homes here in the Charleston area to the tune of about $500 million worth of real estate volume. And so I share my experiences with you. I help you better understand what's happening in the world so that you can make informed decisions about real estate. Now, there's a lot of questions that people are asking about what's happening right now. What's going to happen? Should I wait? How is this impacting the market? Is now the right time to buy, or should I wait? Should I sell? Is my, the equity that I've built up in my home right now going to start to diminish? We're going to try and get to as much of that as possible here over the next hour. But if you'd like to reach out to me personally, I'm going to be sharing some stats and numbers with you because I've been following this extremely closely over the past several weeks. We're monitoring things on a week-to-week basis. So as I share these numbers, just take into account the fact that these are for the entire Charleston market. If you want to know what's happening in your area as it relates to your home or the property that you will likely purchase, then we need to run these same types of numbers in that area and in that price range so you have a really good understanding of what's happening in your neck of the woods. And if I can help you with that, if you want to just talk through some of these issues, better understand what's happening and how this impacts you and your potential plans, whether you're thinking of buying, selling, or investing in real estate, then I invite you to give me a call. My personal phone number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or visit my website, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. There's a lot of great information on there. Every version of this radio show has been on input on that website. You can learn more about what's happening with the market. You can learn more about our virtual home buying and home selling program, which is on the site now. So again, listingsincharleston.com. But let's get right into this. Let's talk about what's happening. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's still a lot yet to be reported. And of course, although we're monitoring things on a week-to-week basis, we know that real estate is a lagging indicator of the economy, and some of the information is just not available yet. It just hasn't been compiled. But again, I'm going to do my best to help you guys understand what's happening right now. But, as businesses across the country have been mandated to close due to the shelter in place, we are now seeing the first unemployment numbers come out, which were unfortunately a lot higher than we expected. We were thinking that it was going to be somewhere around 2 million people that filed for unemployment. You know what the real number was? 3.28 million people for the week ending in March 21st. That is the most claims ever filed in a single week in history. And so the challenge is, we don't know how long this is going to last, and we don't know how these numbers are going to look down the road. We just don't have solid numbers to report locally yet. But people are asking right now, well, when are prices going to start coming down? And I don't think you should expect home prices to start to plunge, by the double digits as they did after the Great Recession. I think what you have to understand is that, in the last downturn in 2008, there were way more properties for sale. We had an overabundance of new construction, and we had a bunch of foreclosures. And there were a bunch of qualified buyers for them. But of course, as things changed, the market went down, and there were a lot of external factors and headwinds that we just don't have right now. This time around, there's a severe shortage of housing for sale, not just locally, but across the country. Builders haven't been putting up enough inventory to meet demand for years at this point. And so, I don't think there's going to be this huge wave of foreclosures because buyers homeowners are in a better position right now. We have more equity than we did, and we're not taking advantage of loan programs that are so wide open that you could just tell a bank how much you make and tell a bank how much assets you have and still get a mortgage. And it would be fine because in 6 months from now, the property is going to be worth 10% more than what you bought it for, and you can sell it and just trade up and up and up like so many people were doing until, of course, the market crashed, and then they realized that they were overexposed. So I don't think we're going to have as much of a challenge as we did in 2008, but there are, of course, some things that could happen that are outside of our control that we haven't even anticipated yet, or have anticipated but we don't think will happen that frankly could make 2008 look like a cakewalk. But we've also got, federal and state governments, along with some banks that are rolling out forbearances and, the payment protection or the payroll protection plan, all these different programs, plus the stimulus of, $1,200 a household. And so if you think prices are going to start declining sharply like they did after the recession of 2008, the market dynamics are just much different this time around. And I think you'll be disappointed if you say, all right, well, we all knew that the bubble had to burst at some point. I guess this is it. I guess this is when things start to tank. Because realistically, we've had 8 years of solid price appreciation in our market. If you look at the first 2 months of 2020 compared to the first 2 months of 2019, prices were up 9%. I mean, that's a lot. But here's the challenge. We're expecting closings to drop about 35% nationwide compared to the fourth quarter of 2019, which historically is not a strong quarter. That's the last quarter of the year. The strongest months for closings, at least in our market, have always been May and June, and to an extent July, because of all the people that put their homes on the market right around now, that go under contract in April and May, that close in May and June and July. So we're expecting this to really hit sales pretty hard. And you have to think about, where are the hardest hit areas because of this issue? I think it's areas with really high percentages of jobs in tourism and leisure and hospitality. Those are the areas that are really hitting this hard. And of course, there are some other subcategories of our economy that are being hit by this as well. But I don't think that we're looking at this sharp decline in pricing. What I think is going to happen, well, I guess let me say this. I want to read some local stats first, because I want you guys to understand what's been happening week over week for the last week of February, the first week of March, compared to the last week of March. And if we look at the difference between February and March of this year, we had 6% increase in new listings that hit the market in March compared to February. The number of properties that went under contract stayed basically the same. In February, we put 1,890 properties under contract. In March, last month, we put 1,869. So essentially no change there. But closings were up 26% last month compared to February. So we've got this reduction in months' supply of inventory, which was what we talk about on the show as a way of measuring the health of a real estate market. Is it a seller's market? Is it a balanced market? Is it a buyer's market? And the reality is we're putting basically the same number of listings on the board, and we are selling the same amount of listings as we were last month. But here's the real kicker, is showings. And this is interesting. This is something that I monitor very closely. If, when someone lists their house with me, we're talking about this stuff on a weekly basis. I run these stats for my listings, and we get really granular on how this change in the market is impacting them in their specific area, in their specific price range. And so if you look at showings, as an example, the first week of March, we had 6,000 showings in our market in 1 week. The last week of March, we had 2,700. So it was down significantly. But even with this reduction in showings, we still are maintaining the same amount of contracts being written and accepted on a monthly basis, which is great. I mean, we still have all this pent-up demand. Buyers still want to buy. They still want to take advantage of low interest rates. And as a result of that, the other thing that I monitor is price reductions. How many people are proactively trying to get ahead of this thing and reduce their price? Because we've got, if you think about it, fair market value right now is a straight line. I don't see prices going up right now. And I say that because I don't think there's enough consumer confidence in our market for a buyer to look at a property and say, yes, I am willing to pay more for that house than the same home that sold last week or last month. I just think there's too much economic uncertainty for a buyer to willingly pay more than what something just sold for. So in my opinion, right now, prices are kind of flat. There might be some areas or some unique properties in which it's priced effectively, it's in great condition, it's something that multiple buyers want, and yes, there's a bidding war. We're still seeing that on some of our listings, believe it or not. But price reductions remain unchanged between February and March because it's clear that we are absorbing that inventory. You know, we're not yet really all that impacted by COVID-19. Now, give that some time. That will start to change. Again, you have to remember that with all this unemployment that we're going to be seeing over the next weeks and likely months to come as businesses fight to survive, those people that are laid off are going to have a challenge maintaining their mortgage payments. And they more than likely have equity in their home if they bought their home a few years ago, which so many people have, which means that they can sell it and they can still walk away with some money in their pocket after the sale, after expenses, after commissions, and be okay. What I don't see happening in droves are a ton of short sales and a ton of foreclosures hitting our market. Now, we might see an uptick in that. Don't get me wrong. And I think we likely will. But I think it's going to be marginal. It's not going to be something that crushes the momentum that we have in our market. The momentum is already established, and I think it's going to start to wane a little bit as these financial situations are experienced by individuals, not just here locally, regionally, nationally. Think about all the people that move here from different areas. I mean, some of these markets are shut down. Thankfully, in Charleston at least, we were classified as an essential service. And, there are plenty of people that, when we call them or when they request more information on a property, ironically, we give them the information and then they complain that we're working right now. Moving doesn't necessarily stop. Yes, it slows down. People that don't have to buy or that don't have to sell, that are just unsure about things. It's not our job to persuade you that everything is okay, like a lot of agents are going to be doing over the next several weeks and months. They're going to downplay the issue. What you need is reliable information to make informed decisions. And that's what we've been doing with our clients and with the folks that have been calling, is we have just been the person that is the go-to for reliable information so that they know how to plan for the process of buying or selling, whether that be now or 3 months from now or 6 months from now. But you need to have the proper information. You need to really wrap your head around how this is going to impact you specifically due to the dynamics within your specific area and within your specific price range. And the challenge is I just don't have enough time on this program to go through all those different areas and speak my truth about what I think is going to happen in all those different areas. So if you'd like more information on what's going to happen in your area, what you should be doing or thinking about, or what we can be keeping an eye on for you in the form of data and trends, then it's just as simple as picking up the phone and giving us a call. The number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. You can visit me online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And be sure to check out our podcast. If you're sitting at home and thinking of some things to do, check out iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, all those different media sources have our podcast, The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. So don't forget to check that out. Stick around for more of The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. We will be right back.
Have a real estate question? Ask Brian Beatty. Send him an email, lowcountryhomesales@gmail.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show is on 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Expert news and views on the Low Country real estate scene. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back, Charleston, as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I am, of course, your host, Brian Beatty. And again, if you want to reach out to me and just have a chat about what's happening in the market right now as it relates to you, your house, your area, your price range, there are so many different types of properties and so many different price ranges in Charleston. It's obviously one of the things that makes selling real estate so fun, but it also makes sharing data with you incredibly challenging because of the variety of properties we have. So I can give you general ideas of what's happening and give you a macro view of what's changing in our market over time, but what's happening in the $300,000 price range at Somerville is a lot different than what's going to happen in the $2 million price range in Isle of Palms. So if you'd like more information on how this is impacting you locally, please feel free to give me a call or text me. My number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. And then we've got a new virtual homebuyer program that I'll talk about a little later that just helps you guys understand, how we're navigating this process right now. What are we doing? What precautions are we taking? How creative can we truly get to facilitate a transaction with literally zero human, interaction? Of course, phone calls and email and live chat and so on and so forth, but we don't need to be in the same room. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. But really the question that I want to answer now that I'm getting from so many people, which we've already kind of discussed the question of what do I think is going to happen? And just a short recap on that. I think as of right now, prices are going to be fairly flat. We are still coming off of a real estate market that is overheated. We have a lot of data that shows us how incredible February was. We broke several records in February over the past, compared to 13 years ago. So we had this great February. It's obviously trickled into March. We'll see how April comes along. But I can tell you that from our perspective, we are seeing a ton of online traffic. A lot of people are stuck at home. And so what are they doing? They're watching Netflix, they're searching real estate, they're, doing a variety of other things, but they're looking at real estate. They're planning for, their eventual move. They're just trying to figure out when the right time for that should be. And so what we really will start to see, quite frankly, is that as prices remain mostly flat, maybe they go up a percentage point or two in April from the leftover buyers that are still searching for properties, that were in bidding wars, that lost out, that still want to buy something. And we still have people that move, that need to sell. That's never going to change. Think about all the different situations that force a sale or necessitate a sale. It's not always completely up to the buyer or the seller as to whether they move right now. And I don't want to share some of those situations because I think this is a very touchy subject, and I realize that. But just realize that we do need to help people move. It's going to happen no matter what. And so for the people that are out there that are ready, willing, and able and equipped and are doing it safely and that are truly being consultants for their clients, those are the ones that you should be relying on when it's time for you to make a decision to buy, sell, or invest in something. Because here's the real, and I'm going a little sidetracked, but I just want to mention this. What we as an industry are very quickly realizing about ourselves is that we either do or do not have discipline. When you go into an office environment, and maybe you're feeling this too because you're working from home just like everybody else. If you're way more productive in the office than you are at home, I've got people on my real estate team that have young kids, and I've got a 3 and a 5-year-old. And thankfully, my wife is an amazing wife and an amazing mom, and she gives me the time that I need to work. But, when the kids are at home, they don't understand that if I'm home that, I should be playing with them. And that's a challenge. And I know all of you are going through varieties of those types of challenges right now. But it's funny that the lack of discipline in our industry is what's going to cause so many real estate agents to just get out of the business because they just can't bring themselves to work. And if you hire somebody to sell your house and they're just waiting for agents to schedule showings, this is the true test of whether the real estate agent that you want to hire is going to be effective or not. Are they actually going to work and do things proactively to sell your house, or are they going to do what they always do, which is kind of just sit around and wait for things to unfold and hope that a buyer finds their listing online, or hope that an agent shows their listing to one of their buyers. If they're not doing things proactively, then it's all just left to chance. And I'll tell you a little bit later on about what we're doing and what we've been doing over the past 18 months at this point to proactively target people so that when people ask us, what are you going to do to find buyers for my house? We can answer that question. We have a very effective strategy, and this is the best time to employ it. It's working incredibly well for us. Our properties are selling. In the past 2 weeks, we've done a deal a day, a contract a day. So it's different for different people. But getting back to my original comment here, what I think is going to happen is that as our market flatlines at the moment, as prices just stabilize, you're going to realize that there is a big difference between a property that is priced correctly and a property that is not priced correctly. We have a group of listings in our market, a fairly large segment of them, quite frankly, that are just overpriced. And if you think about it, it makes sense. When we're listing properties right now, when we see these price appreciations and these price gains in these different areas, depending upon which area you're in, of course, it's okay to overprice the property a little bit because the demand should still be there. So let's say that we're marketing a $750,000 house. Well, we could price it at $750,000, or we could price it at $765,000. And the reality is, the same buyers are going to be looking at that property. The number of eyes on the screen haven't really changed. So then it just becomes a comparison of perceived value. And as I mentioned earlier, the challenge that we have right now is that buyers do not completely believe that prices are going to continue to go up. And so what they believe becomes real, especially as time goes by. So we'll see, in my opinion, price reductions start to increase as the number of contracts starts to go down, as people feel the financial impacts of COVID-19. And we just don't have the data yet. The data will show up, and the trends are developing now. But that, in my opinion, is what's going to happen. So it begs the question, should I wait? Should I buy something right now? Should I sell something right now? And I've been talking with my real estate team, and I've actually been talking with agents across the country about this. We've been on some, we're lucky enough to be in some masterminds and deliver some presentations to agents that I coach through my coaching company. And I think we need to just shift our minds for a second off of prices and focus on cost of ownership, because we have had some serious volatility in interest rates over the course of the last month. I mean, I was lucky enough to lock in my interest rate on my refinance on 2 separate properties at the lowest possible interest rate, which is awesome. And, if you don't have a great lender and you're thinking about doing that, let me know. We have a team of awesome people, whether it's a lender or inspector or closing attorney or appraiser or contractors. I mean, we've really developed those relationships over time, and I'm very confident in our vendors. But, getting back to this comment of, should I buy right now or should I sell right now? I think we need to focus on cost of ownership. Because if you're waiting, if you're a buyer, the thing that runs through a buyer's mind right now is, okay, well, obviously the bubble has burst, right? We've all been waiting for this to happen. We all knew it was going to happen, and now here it is. Prices are going to start falling. It's just a matter of how fast and by how much. And do I think prices are going to go down a little bit? Yeah, I do. Some areas more than others. I just can't see this being an environment in which prices continue to go up, certainly not at the pace that they have been. But, as these prices start to come down a little bit, we don't know if that's going to be 2% or 3% or 5%. I don't think it's going to be, huge double-digit decreases in pricing, especially in the short term. And I do think that we'll bounce back pretty well from this, all things considered. But again, there are still so many things that we don't know that could happen, that could throw that projection, for a tailspin, that it's a bit dangerous to say that and hang my hat on that. But I think the reality is this. When you're looking at interest rates, as an example, a 0.5% in an increase in interest rates, if let's just say interest rates go from 3.5% to 4%, That is the equivalent of a 7% increase in your monthly payment. So which is more likely to happen? Interest rates go up or down 0.5%, or prices come down 7%? The answer is interest rates. And they fluctuate multiple times, daily, in fact. So if you're a buyer and you're well connected with your lender and you've found a property that you're interested in, or you're primed and in a position to buy something, and those interest rates come way down, let's say they're closer to 3%, and you can do some negotiations with a seller that might be a little afraid of not getting as good of an offer if they wait or hold out for something better, then that's where the opportunity lies. To take advantage of a seller that might be really concerned about the state of the economy and how that's going to impact the value of your house. So you win on the negotiation, which buyers have not been used to. I mean, usually you kind of have to pay pretty darn close to what the seller wants. And if you don't, someone else will. That's just been the name of the game in our market for years. But if you can also couple that with really low interest rates, then, if it were me, quite frankly, I wouldn't care if I'm paying a few $1,000s more for the house than I could if I waited. Because the reality is I am saving several percentage points per month on my monthly payment. It costs me less money to own that house. Whereas if I waited, a week, a month, who knows, then I might be paying 7, 8, 10% more for that same house. So prices certainly aren't going to go up 7, 8, 10% over the course of the next few months. That's that I can say with confidence. But as it relates to trying to time the market, I think you really, as a buyer, need to be more concerned about timing the cost of ownership. And do I think prices will come down a little bit? Yes. I don't know exactly when that's going to be. I mean, we still have such a shortage of inventory that there's not a lot of choice. It's not like 2009, 2010, where a buyer gets to say, hey, here's my offer. And if you don't take it, then I have 5 other people that I can make the same offer to with a very similar type house, and I'm sure I can find someone that's willing to take my offer. And they could. We don't have those dynamics right now. So interesting things to watch. I want to take a break. When I come back, I want to talk about, should I sell my house right now? What's going to happen to my equity? We saw the stock market tank. We've seen the economic impact of COVID-19. Is my equity next? I'm going to answer that when we come back. But again, if you want to reach out to me and just talk through this, help you better understand what's happening in your area, in your market, in your price range, your equity, your interest in buying something, then let's just have a chat about it. Let's just help you understand what's going on, because as I said, we just don't have enough time on this program to hit all the different areas of Charleston and how this is impacting those areas. So my number, which you can call or text, is 843-400-8009. Again, that's 843-400-8009. Or you can visit me online, listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. Stick around for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Find Brian Beatty online at listingsincharleston.com. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show continues next on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA. 1250 WTMA. Now, here's more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA.
Welcome back to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I always like to take a little bit of time and just say thank you to those of you that listen to this program and rely on the information within it to help you better understand the real estate market. And I take this so seriously. This is a show that's frankly very therapeutic for me. I get to come on this show and just tell you guys what I'm experiencing. I put a lot of time and effort into ensuring that I'm an expert in this market so that when clients contact me to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, I am the source of information that they're looking for to help shape their understanding of the market and what they need to do to win. How do they make the best out of a transaction at any point in time? And so I know I sound like a bit of a broken record here, but I just want to make sure you understand that the market is changing. We don't yet have enough data to be able to tell you how it's changing or what the change is. I mean, I can certainly tell you what's happening in the short term, which we did in the beginning section of the show. And if you missed that, then remember to head over to listingsincharleston.com because we post all of our radio shows there. We've got hundreds of videos of this show on YouTube. And of course, you can listen to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play or Spotify. Would love for you to subscribe to that. We'd love some comments too to try and boost those a little bit, quite honestly, selfishly. But I just wanted to say thanks for listening to the show. We really do care, and we want to be the source of information that separates fact from fiction. There's a lot of real estate agents out there that just haven't wrapped their head around this yet, and they're not taking the time to really understand the impact on our local housing market. It takes a lot of time and energy and resources to wrap your head around all this, and it takes experience. And so I want to talk for just a few moments about the question of, should I sell my house right now? Do I need to be concerned about the value of my house? Is the question that I'm getting quite a bit right now. Does it make sense to sell now before things start to get bad? The answer to that is, and I know this is going to be irritating for you, but the answer is it depends. If you're in a luxury home, then we need to take a very close look at what dynamics we were facing before COVID-19 and what's going to happen now, because think about it. The people with the money that have money in the stock market are more impacted by those that, or compared to those that just don't. So we're seeing a bit of a reduction in wealth. Now, if we're talking about super wealthy folks, super high net worth individuals, then, they're impacted, but they still have the ability to buy what they want to buy when they want to buy it. But if we're talking about $1 million house from someone that's making a few $100,000 a year, and they go from a $300,000 a year income to a $175,000 a year income, then that's a challenge for them. In the grand scheme of things, it seems like no matter how much money we make, we always seem to kind of max out our lifestyle. We always try to buy the most expensive home we can buy, without it feeling so incredibly uncomfortable financially that we're making a poor decision. But there's been a lot of that. And that's just human behavior. That's just how people do things. That's not a sign of a great real estate market. It is kind of a sign of a great economy because, it boils down to confidence. How confident are you in your ability to maintain your income? That's a question you need to ask yourself, whether you're buying or selling. How financially secure do I feel? Am I at risk of making less money or making no money if I get laid off? And is that a reality? Is that something I need to be considering? If it is, then, marrying yourself to a mortgage is probably not a good idea right now. Now, on the flip side of that, if you want to sell your house and you're going through the motions there of, does this make sense to do right now? The real question is, because people just want to ask, hey, should I sell right now? Is my equity at risk? Really, the big question is, if I don't sell now and I choose to sell later, am I going to make less money? Is the cost of waiting enough to where I want to sell my house now to avoid that eventual pain? Is that going to happen? You got to remember, when people make decisions, they either run toward pleasure or away from pain. So they're either fearful of losing money, or they recognize the opportunity in capturing more money by selling right now. And I guess the question then becomes, if I'm going to sell right now, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Are there enough opportunities in the market right now to make sense out of me moving? And we also have to separate, is this a financial-based decision? Or do I want to move because I want more space? I want more acreage. I want more amenities in my home. I want a bigger, better, nicer house. Or, of course, on the flip side of that, you know what? We've enjoyed this home for years and years and years. Our kids are grown up now. We don't need all this space. This is a lot of what we're getting right now. We don't need all this space. It's too much to handle for us. We're tired of maintaining it. We want something more manageable. We want to sell it now. We want to capture the equity that we've built in this home over the past several years, put that in the bank, and go and buy something more manageable. And if that's your concern, if that's your situation, if that's something you're thinking through right now, I do encourage you taking a very close look at that. I do think that in most areas and most price ranges, if you're going to be downsizing, it's likely a good idea to start doing that, and probably start doing that pretty quickly. I do want you to understand that I do not like pressure sales. I never want this program to be anything other than factual and a blend of my opinion as somebody that experiences this market at a very high level on a daily basis. And so again, you have to better understand what's happening in your specific area and in your specific price range. It's going to hit the more expensive homes first because those are want-based purchases. Those are not need-based purchases, or they're mostly want-based, right? So we'll see those markets start to get impacted. Of course, on the flip side of that, look at all the unemployment that we're going to have for weeks to come. Who knows if it will be, at the 3.24 or 3.25 million unemployment cases that we had toward the middle of the month. But I do expect that to continue. How can it not? I mean, business are just shut down right now. I have one of my best friends is the CFO for a very large conglomerate of dentist offices around the country. And he was just sharing with me kind of on a macro level what he's having to do to reforecast their entire budget, renegotiate debts. And I mean, this is what people are going through right now. They're really having to look at their personal budgets, their business-based budgets, trim some of the fat, and just get more lean and mean. But again, it also is funny in that if you're going to get more lean and mean, it means you got to double down on the things that you do in order to maintain and or grow your business. And a lot of people are just kind of stuck right now. They don't know how to motivate themselves out of this situation. And of course, there are people that are going through very, very unfortunate personal situations right now, and I really resonate with that, and I am so sorry that you're going through those things. But for the professionals, especially in my industry, I think a lot of them are on vacation right now. A lot of them are just not doing much. So if you're going to be selling your house right now, you really need to ask the question of what are you going to be doing right now? If I was a seller and I wanted to sell my house right now, I would ask the agent what they think of the market, what they're seeing, what they believe is going to happen. And that would probably be my first test as to whether or not this agent is truly connected with the issues. If they can't answer that, and if they can't give you some solid information backed by real data, then that to me would be a red flag. It just means to me that they are not as in tune with this market as a way of consulting you as they should be. And then, of course, it begs the question of, okay, well, let's say I do want to sell my house. Let's say that we determine that this is the right time to sell it because we want to take advantage of pent-up demand and the fact that there are not a lot of properties available right now. And people are still buying. I mean, the numbers prove it. People are still buying real estate. Again, going through those local numbers, we put the same number of homes under contract in March as we did in February with a considerably lower amount of showings. I mean, again, we went from, the first week of March, we had 6,000 showings. Last week of March, 2,700 showings. We still put 19% more properties under contract the last week of March than we did the week before that. So there is opportunity to sell. There are buyers that want to buy. It's a question of how do we now facilitate that process if we don't want a bunch of people walking through our homes, or if the buyers don't want to be subjected to walking through, frankly, a stranger's house. How do we do that? And so I want to talk about that when I come back. I want to talk about how we have taken our business virtual for the time being, and how this might change our industry for months and years to come. So stick around as we talk about that. The Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me to talk more about your specific situation and just help wrap your head around this, my number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com.
Stay tuned for more of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
1250 WTMA.
You're listening to the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com.
Welcome back, folks, to the last few minutes of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. I want to talk for just a few minutes about how we are selling real estate right now, how we have gone virtual, and if you're going to buy a home or sell a home, what that process looks like. How are we able to accommodate you and the situation at hand? And so if we're, regardless of whether we're talking to a buyer or a seller, we can do our presentations online. A lot of people are joking that Zoom is behind the coronavirus because everybody is using Zoom these days. I've been using it for years for video conferencing, and they just don't have the bandwidth based on all the people that are using it now. But we're doing our presentations virtually. I have the ability to show you my computer screen, which frankly is almost a little more interactive because whether you're going to buy a house or sell a house, you get to see me actually using the MLS. Of course, you can go on Zillow or Realtor.com or all these different websites and search for real estate or to get an idea of what your home is worth, but nothing trumps the MLS. It's the raw data that we sift through and analyze and interpret to determine how much your home is worth or a home that someone wants to buy is worth. And so we get to actually show people that, which is really cool, because what most agents will do is will say, well, tell me a little bit more about what you're looking for. You give them the information. Okay, great. I'm going to send you an email with some properties. And then, every time you see something you like, just let me know and I'll go and I'll show it to you. And so many agents are still doing that when in reality, what we should be doing is saying, all right, let me show you what's actually available. Let's talk through those options. I want you to tell me what you like and don't like about the properties that I select based on what you've told me you're interested in. And then the more we communicate about what you like and don't like, the better I can be at finding the right house for you. Because nobody wants to go and subject themselves to looking at a bunch of showings that you're just flat out not interested in. So if you need to work with an agent that really knows how to listen, quite honestly. And so we're doing our presentations virtually. We're doing our showings virtually. We're having agents on my team, of course, be very safe. We're wearing booties and gloves and masks and, it almost looks like, we're escaping a murder scene or something every time we walk in and out of a house. But so our attire has certainly changed on a day-to-day basis. But, we're doing our showings virtually. We're FaceTiming with our clients. We're doing 3D tours that allow you to walk through the house, which are really cool. And then once we find something we really like, then we say, okay, this is why I think you're really going to like this house. Come here, let me show you this. We're doing this all on video in real time. And then we schedule an actual in-person showing. Of course, we're doing social distancing. We're wiping off all the doorknobs and keeping our hands in our pockets and being as safe as we possibly can be. But if we see something we like, we do the paperwork virtually. You can wire your earnest money. The inspection reports that we get, they're 50 plus pages long with a bunch of pictures, and then we're video chatting with the home inspector to talk through some of the issues that he saw when he was there. And of course, they're being extremely careful and diligent about touching things. They're wearing gloves. They're doing everything they need to be doing. Even the closing can be done virtually. You can give the closing attorney power of attorney. You can review the documents with them electronically, give the go-ahead, and then they can sign off on your behalf. We can even mail you the keys. So there isn't actually anything we have to do in person. You can buy a house and frankly never meet your real estate agent in person. And the reality is we probably do that 10 to 15 times a year, probably more than that actually, probably more like 20, 25 times a year. Anyways, we've been doing that for years for all the folks that want to sell a home that have already moved or want to buy something that are relocating that just can't get here to physically walk through it. So where there's a will, there's a way. On the seller side of things, of course, we're doing professional photography and videography and 3D virtual tours. And, if you're concerned about staging, we can virtually stage your house, which looks super cool. We're also doing pre-listing home inspections. Normally when I walk through the house, of course, I'm looking at layout and upgrades and finishes and all the details, but I'm also looking for problems that a buyer might see when they walk through it so that we can get ahead of that. We can account for that when it comes time to negotiate a deal. So we're doing a pre-listing home inspection so you have an understanding of what we can fix so that we can get ahead of that. We can control that cost. Then we're making a single property website where our marketing has changed. That changed about a year and a half ago in a huge way to where now we can specifically target buyers through ad campaigns that take into account their own individual demographics and online behavior that lead us to believe, hey, they're already looking for a house like this. They're clearly interested in properties in this area and price range, and they share certain, social interactions that match the type of buyer for this house. And then, of course, the other big thing is pre-qualifying showings. We don't want people walking through your house that are showing signs of illness or that just aren't in a position to buy. So they need to be pre-approved. They need to be paying cash. They need to be in a position to make an offer, and then we need to share information with them on how they can view that property and show it to their client effectively so we're not missing out on details that should otherwise be conveyed if that buyer walked through it in person. So if we can help you with that, give us a call, 843-400-8009, 400-8009, or go to listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com. You guys stay safe and have a great weekend.
Join us for another edition of the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show. Your station for Decision 2020.
WTMA Charleston.
A Cumulus station.